Should you see The Raid and The Raid 2? I'm going to start this review off by showing a clip from the first Raid film. Your reaction to it will probably tell you right away if these are the kinds of movies you're interested in. I believe these movies to be some of the best action and martial arts films of all time. Very rarely does a film leave me feeling physically exhausted, but pumped with adrenaline after a viewing, and both these films deliver heaping doses. Additionally, I love seeing the credit written and directed by. To me, it signals that the film is more the result of a single person's vision, rather than the corporate checklist of compromise for the sake of marketability that many films are. Though the movie boasts an Indonesian cast and was shot in the country, both are written and directed by the Welsh-born Gareth Evans. The first Raid film is often unfairly compared with the 2012 Dredd movie, despite coming out a year earlier due to their similar premises. Protagonists must work through an entire skyscraper filled with drug runners, gangsters, and lowlifes to reach the crime boss at the top. There's nothing particularly new about this concept, yet the Raid tackles it with a level of perfection seen in few other films. The action is gorgeously choreographed, with reactions seemingly coming from the characters in a desperate struggle, rather than feeling like the pre-choreographed dance moves that often plague movies of this kind. The hits come fast and land with a cringe-inducing sense of physicality. Our camera is always moving, but never really shaky. Any nausea that comes will probably not be from motion sickness, but from the sheer level of continuous near sadism on display. Violence in this film is relatively realistic and not at all restrained. The second film particularly ups the ante when it comes to realistic gore. Every head punch, gunshot to the neck, knife wound, elbow blow, you name it, is captured in unflinching detail and usually by a camera that operates from a distance, giving the audience a full view of everything as it happens. This allows the actors to really perform full sequences and gives a feeling of authenticity to the action. The pace is relentless and the narrative efficient, yet nothing feels rushed. We learned nothing of the vast majority of the players aside from enough to care about our protagonist, which, in a lesser film, would be a major detractor. Here, such detail would only slow things down. Every time I watch the first film in particular, I have to keep reminding myself to breathe. Musically, the first film alternates between ambient electronic layers of pure unfiltered dread and all-out go-for-the-throat industrial blasts. It creates a sense of near-tangible atmosphere. The narrative of the first film is a predatory animal. Sleek, efficient, beautiful, brutal. It's gruesome and it never lets up, but there's a certain organic respect this brings when combined with the high level of artistry on display. There's not much more to say about the first one. Its strengths and weaknesses are one and the same. It does exactly what it sets out to do, in my opinion, better than any film attempting to do the same thing before or since. No more, no less. The Raid 2 keeps the realism-based yet relentless violence, characters, and ending of the first, but adds a narrative that is complex, large, and unexpectedly intriguing. If the closest equivalent to the first Raid film is Dredd or Ong-Bak, then the closest equivalent to Raid 2 would be something like The Godfather. Though the stakes are raised significantly, the story is given time to breathe. A little too much time in spots. A full 50 minutes longer than the first movie, The Raid 2 pursues some story threads that, while memorable, could have been left on the cutting room floor. There are moments where the film could have really leveraged some truly emotional character beats, yet it mostly misses this opportunity. These missteps make The Raid 2 far less accessible than the first film, but the higher production values and emphasis on a more cinematic aesthetic may make up for this. As far as living up to and expanding on the characters, tone, world, and narrative of the first film, The Raid 2 works masterfully, giving the audience everything they loved about the first, and almost too much more. So, should you see the Raid films? If absolutely brutal martial arts and the unrelenting tension within a grim criminal underworld sounds like your shot of adrenaline, then I fully recommend the Raid films to you. If you're looking for something a little tamer, I recommend checking out Ip Man, Ong-Bak, or Chocolate. Rotten Tomatoes gives the Raid 85% out of 100, and the Raid 2 79% out of 100. IMDb gave the Raid 7.6 stars out of 10, and the Raid 2 8 stars out of 10.